Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy. I'm Ted, hanging out with some of the colleagues here.
Ryan.
Dave, Four Nerds by
Four
Nerds.
Nerds by Nerds.
There we go.
And today we have a viewer request from Mr. Tech Fox, and he wants to know what's the difference between persuasion and deception. Is there a reason to take them both? What do you guys think?
Well, okay, so ultimately, he understands there's a difference between them, and he knows what they are. But it's like what he was kind of asking is, can I just lie to persuade them instead of persuading them? And I think inherently the problem is the fact that he's missing the point of what you can do with those two skills, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I look at persuasion, regardless of how you're doing it, you are trying to convince someone who is not inclined to just say yes to what you want to do. And deception is getting someone to believe a lie,
A blatant falsehood.
a blatant falsehood that you yourself know is isn't true.
And back in the day, which I think maybe was a little clearer between the two, would be bluff and diplomacy.
Mhm.
Like those just sound very different. Whereas like deception and persuasion, like I don't know, just semantically they sound like a similar sort of thing.
Yeah, well, deception encompasses more now too.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to conceal something on you, you might, your DM might call for a deception.
Mhm.
Well, isn't there? I think there's a
There's
sleight of
sli-
hand.
there's sleight of
skill.
hand as well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess. Well, yeah, but sleight of hand is also palming something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like there's some ambiguity in these.
Ambiguity. Well,
So
no.
there's-
But no, sleight of hand is like concealing something on your body. I would still rule that was that thing.
Well, I would say sleight of hand would be when I'm trying to get something from you. If
Well,
you're
that's exactly what it is. It's,
if I'm trying to again, there could be some differences between sleight of hand and deception, but if I'm trying to convince you that I don't have something or that something is not true, then that could be a role there. But it's part of the mechanics of 5th edition that it's the power comes down to the DM. We talk off camera. We were talking about tools, and it fits into the skills as well. There are times that the DM is going to say, "Well, I think this is this skill situation, and since you can always make an untrained thing, you just you have to deal with what the DM sets out there."
And if you're spec to do one or the other, you're still going to have a respectable charisma stat because you chose those skills, so you
Right.
probably want to be good at them. So because like my face characters usually have both skills, they're going to take perception and or deception and persuasion, like because they're going to have a high charisma score, and I just want to.
So I'm either typically, if I'm making a face character, I'm either making, all right, well, he is the goodly talky type character and he's going to have persuasion, or he's the kind of sneaky and he's probably just going to have deception.
well, I see it this way though. Like just because you succeed with your deception and you've convinced them, that's not persuading them to do what you want.
Yeah.
You've convinced the guard that you're not up to any wrongdoing,
Or you don't have a concealed weapon. You've convinced them that you don't have a concealed
but
weapon.
you haven't convinced him to go somewhere else or do something that you want him to do,
Or let you into a thing.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I guess you could deception that you have an invitation to like an event. Well, that gets a little ambiguous actually. Persuade versus deceiving. Like my name is clearly on the list. You just missed it, or they just forgot. Like so, I'm not sure where you would.
Well,
go
if
with
there's an
that.
actual list and your name is not on the list, then your name is not on the list, so you can't really deceive that.
But
There's no deception.
If you've got a forged invitation,
Yeah.
it's like, well, I clearly have the invitation, and you could have a deception roll for your forgery, to see, okay, well, all right, well, this clearly looks like a good
But see,
invitation.
I don't think that would come up because if you have an invitation, they're just going to let you in unless they can detect it as a fake, which is completely different.
That's true.
Now, if there's something off about it, and then they're like, well, this doesn't look right. I think we have to look into this.
Mhm.
Then
That's clearly going to fall into persuasion
then you have to persuade them that
to let you in.
there was a glitch. There was the scribe was drinking that day or something or whatever. So I really clearly think that the defining thing is you can't use deception to persuade people. You can deception is going to the only thing you can persuade someone with deception is you can persuade them to believe that you're telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But that said truth can't actually make them do one thing or another. It may keep you from getting locked up. It may keep some consequences from happening, but you haven't persuaded them to do anything yet. If you want the guard to let you in, there is no deception to get by that. Without something. I mean, you could lie to them, I guess, and maybe sneak by, but it's really more of a persuasion role. Because what are you trying to do? What are you trying to say? Like, you're still persuading, even if you're lying. You're like, I belong in there. You have to persuade them that you belong.
Okay, well, I'll lock you up then.
Well, I don't know, because when you get back to diplomacy versus bluff, to use 3rd edition speak, like a bluff is like, yeah, I'm the mayor's nephew or mayor's nephew's cousin twice removed. I absolutely should be admitted to this coronation or whatever. Like, that seems like a thing that you might be able to bluff your way into. So it sounds like deception might actually work under that circumstance.
Well, I mean, I think it's going to come down to the minute details and what you're choosing to role play. I mean, using that specific example, if you can literally bluff your way to convince this guy that you are the mayor's nephew, if the DM's thinking on his feet, he might say, okay, well, then let me go get someone to verify, because I'm just a lowly, guard here. Or he might, if the DM's not thinking on his feet, he might say, okay, well, let me let you in.
I feel like deception can lead to persuasion roles. You're like going down that line of thought. It's like, so you're saying you're the mayor's nephew. Well, I guess you kind of look like it could be the mayor's nephew. Let me go get someone. And then you got to try and persuade him that, no, you really don't need to go get someone.
So, I mean, it comes down to, how much role playing are you doing? How much, is the DM willing to work with stuff?
But also too, like, how much at the mercy of the dice do you want to put the player? Like, that is being clever, took that cadre of skills. Like, the person that does an athletic thing or whatever, they just have one check. You mean I have to make this chain of checks, even though, like, my character's good at it, but if I roll a 1, well, if I can roll a 1.
Actually, absolutely, sometimes you have to make that chain of checks.
Yeah,
maybe there's more than one rooftop to jump across.
Right. Well, yeah. Sometimes that happens too, and you're wearing full plate, and it's the worst thing ever.
Well, on the conversational situation is typically when you're making that, I got to make a deception, now I got to make a persuasion. It's typically like that is a focus point of the session or the campaign.
But if it's that important and it hinges on the die roll, like, and if it's a GM, you really want your players to actually do the thing, like, you should almost not have to make the check, because if they fail, it's like, oh, the rest of the thing I had written that I want them to do, they can't do because this guy didn't make his check.
Now you just have to find another way. I mean, it comes down to how the players are handling the situation that you put in front of them, and if it's a central focused point of what's going on. Typically a GM is going to have, well, here's all the things that they could do or could say to give them bonuses or lower the DCs.
But there's plenty of times you do see the GM do that, and like they have to do the thing to move forward.
Well, I mean, like the you never want the furthering of your plot to hinge on a single die roll. Like, that would be crazy. Like, you would have to have like 3 contingencies just in case if it's what you're gonna do.
Well, and that's what you do. I mean, if it's important that the players get into this party. And it's all hinging on one player. Well, then you didn't put enough layers into your story creation. There's got to be, well, this guy is set up as a guard at this other door, and you've got to try to get in through this one so that you get the royal entrance. Well, if you don't, okay, well then we'll sneak you in the back. And, so you want your players to be thinking about multiple options if you've got a storyline that's geared towards being at this party. If it's not. If it's not super important that they're there, well, then it's not as big of a situation. It's about layering your story and having the things all make sense.
So to get back a little, because we got a little off the track, like talking about just GME sort of stuff.
True.
But Basically, persuasion is oratory, just like swaying people. I would say is swaying opinion, whereas deception is like blatant, patent untruth. Spreading rumors. You could spread rumors. I think with deception would be the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's some of the issues with the kind of like generic skill system of you can make the case either way.
It really, yeah.
And that comes down to
the GM call.
The GM call, the built-in situation of putting the power back into the DM's hands.
You know what this makes me think of too, though, is a lot of times when you have skills come into question for use that you can do athletics or acrobatics to overcome the challenge, where like you're given the choice either or. It almost feels like sometimes in social scenarios that like you might just give people the choice of either or, and in that case, if that's often how it's going to go, then it doesn't make sense for a player to have both things if they're only going to come into play.
The difference of that particular situation is acrobatics and athletics, it's dex or strength, whereas deception and persuasion is both charisma.
Yeah,
so it's like I look at that, it's like, well, okay, so you're either going to make a charisma roll or a charisma roll. So it's like,
well, with your proficiency bonus,
right? So, and you were saying whenever you build a talkie character, they usually have both.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I make a character, they've either got one or the other. I usually don't feel the need to take both.
Yeah.
I think I've got some characters who have got both, but it's not my standard.
So I mean, like if I have a character like Hemsworthy is like, he can legitimately convince people, or he can. Or he can blatantly lie. Like, and also he's like disguising himself. So
as a rogue, as set up as Lyndon is, like, I think that particular character, it's good that he's got both.
And when he puts in the bid to run for mayor, it's super helpful to have. Now,
here's like my thought too. If you have both, right? I think the DM is more likely to go, okay. Well, I'm more likely to go, okay. If you have both, I'm not going to require the series of rolls. But if you don't,
maybe you would.
Maybe I would. Maybe
because you're good at like weaving the deception into the truth or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's like being multilingual and like speaking
and the
a
other
pigeon.
thing too is, what is the moral compass of the character? Well, if it's a good character and you only take the deception, I don't know that really makes sense.
Well, I mean, lying isn't like, depending on the degree of lie, like lying isn't evil per se. Like, because there's lies of omission, where you just don't give all the details or whatever.
Yeah, but it has negative connotations, and it's generally not good. Lying is equivalent to be untrustworthy,
right?
Which is a non-good aspect.
I guess it's the difference between like lawful good is like,
and there's also a neutral between good and evil as well. So
well, I'm just saying that like, so lawful good probably not going to do deception, but neutral and chaotic good, there's a case for instances where they might
chaotic good. It's the ends justify the means. So you can tell a lie if what you're doing ultimately is going to serve the greater good. I would think like if you're lawful evil, you could still do deception because well, if he believed me, or I mean, there's cases to be made for a lot of different situations. Lawful good, I don't see you as being the deceiver.
Well, the other thing too is like persuasion is more of like a likability thing too. So if you're likable, regardless of your alignment, you're gonna go with persuasion over deception. If your way of getting things done is just getting people to like you, I think persuasion's the way to go. If your way of getting things done is just being a lying bastard, you're gonna go with deception, and you're gonna write the truths you want. So again, it's just one of those areas where you maybe you can use both, but there's definitely certain areas where they're not interchangeable.
Right.
I think if you're trying to persuade someone of something that's not true, then it's deception. If you're trying to convince someone to do something,
to alter their point of view, perhaps. Like if you're trying to sway someone's opinion, say if like people have different politics or whatever, and like you're trying to convince somebody who's on the opposite end of the spectrum from where you are, well, you're gonna have to persuade them to that point to come to your.
Well, what I was going to say, here's the thing with deception is, if they ever find out the deception, you're caught. persuasion, I don't really think there's a downside to
trying it.
But yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You know, I think if you go with the okay, you can use deception for almost everything you use persuasion for. And I'm kind of coming to this as we talk about
right,
this.
but you run the risk of being found out at some point, like them finding
Yes.
out it is blatantly untrue. And if you're well known and reside in the same city, like if you stay in the same place, well, they might come find you depending on how wrong they were by the deception. If they were the captain of the guard and something you did, like basically illegal, you got past them, they get fired. Well, guess what? They want to go come take that out on you.
Your reputation.
Yeah.
Your ability to use deception in the future is going to get increasingly more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because people find you. So I think
that's why you wear disguises when you do it.
I think that's the real. Isn't wearing disguises part of deception? Or is it a disguise kit?
There is a disguise kit.
So confusing.
Yeah, it really is.
You know, so I think that's the main thing. I think persuasion doesn't come with penalties if you're successful. If you're not successful, whatever you're trying just doesn't work. Deception, if what you're trying doesn't work, you get caught right then and there, and there is always the chance of being out at
comes to light. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Like if you're adventuring in the same region or in the same city, like, you know, every lie could come back to haunt you, regardless of whether you're successful or not. Like, you know, there's always the chance that they find out.
So the best social characters will have both.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you know, you really do want to be able to intertwine persuasion with deception. Like, even if you can deceive your way through, you're probably better off, you know, using deception to cover something up and using persuasion to get people to do what you want.
Yeah. So I think the big takeaway to this, to Mr. Tech Fox, is that just if you're GMing this game, there absolutely should be consequences to every lie told in the game, or most lies told in the game, especially the big lies. Yeah.
Especially the face character, right, or the social character that chose to just forego all other things over deception. But like, I feel like then you need a running list of everything that they're doing to be like, eventually when it all explodes,
when it all catches up, like then all the people that he's been lying to, depending on the degree of the lie, like have formed a group that is like hunting him.
Something. There's definitely room for consequences with that.
Oh yeah.
So that was a long video for us to say, oh, you know what, this is how it works. You know, the deception has consequences, persuasion doesn't.
There we go. So are you guys persuaded? You can like, comment, subscribe. We can further discuss the difference between persuasion and deception in the comments below.
You can check us out on nerdarchy.com.
Or you can Patreon us in a good way over at Patreon.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.